Hi guys, welcome back to me and him. Hope you've been keeping well. Well, today we are doing a bit of a movie review, but also discussion. So recently we celebrated Easter, and that's one of our big holidays as obviously Christians, where we celebrate the death and resurrection of Christ. And on that weekend, we watched the movie Passion of the Christ, which was my first time. And I thought it was honestly like the best weekend to do it on. So we're going to be discussing Passion of the Christ and just what it meant to us and the power of the movie as well. I find it an incredible movie. Just, I think I started crying within the first 5 to 10 minutes of the movie, just seeing what Jesus went through. Probably started crying about when he was then taken to the Roman soldiers and they started whipping him. And seeing that, I couldn't even watch that scene properly just because of how intense they made it. Like Mel Gibson really went all out with that. I was just blown away, and it takes you back to like when it actually happened, and you realize just what Jesus went through for us.
Yeah.
To save our lives.
Yeah. It's every time I watch that movie, I always feel like so humbled. But it also leaves like I can't even explain really the emotion, just the hard hittingness of it. I think, oh man, I think as a movie goes, it's an interesting movie. Like I don't know how you summarize Passion of the Christ, because really you know already what the outcome's going to be, and especially if you're Christian. You know what is going to be taking place, but I think it's the portrayal of it. What is the lead character's name? Caviezel? Oh, Jim Caviezel. Like Jim Caviezel's role and what he had to go through on that. Like it's just very hard hitting, and I know that like he got like blacklisted from Hollywood, and people didn't really want to work with Mel Gibson. He couldn't really get it promoted. There's this whole story on the Joe Rogan podcast, which he put on. But Jim Caviezel's role of portraying Jesus, and like how do you do that? How do you portray probably the most famous person in history, and bring the weight and depth and everything to it? And what's really interesting is Jim Caviezel, I believe, is not he's not Arabic. He's not Middle Eastern. He's American.
Sure.
And then he had to go to learn how to speak Arabic for it, and just that choice of putting the whole movie in Arabic and having to read subtitles. And in some way I feel like if you watch that movie, it's some sort of grace to be able to take your eyes off what is happening. But very emotional movie. I mean, I always cry at a few parts that comes up, and every time that I've watched it, I've noted the first is they're taking Jesus from the Garden of Gethsemane and he falls over the bridge. And they have him by chains, and he like looks down at I think he looks at Judas.
Yeah,
Judas
it is
sitting
Judas
at the bottom. And I'm like, oh man, like for some reason that's the first point then I get that I well up. And then it's also looking at just when he went and received the lashings as well. That scene is like, man, it's crazy, especially the point where the cat o' nine tails comes and hits him.
Oh, I couldn't do that.
And just seeing this kind of like torment in the way it portrays. And then also when he's on the cross, and I know he gets suspended, and I'll look back at the movie like, what was he suspended on? Like if I would have quit the movie, I'd be like, what? But they face the cross and they flip it over, and he's like on the cross, and then it flips it over, and it's just this heaviness that movie holds. I mean, just the whole way through, it holds a lot of emotion, a lot of things that take place there. I mean, I've seen things that are brutal, like where there's a lot of like gore, but this just
was on a whole other level.
I wouldn't even say it's a whole nother level, because I've seen things that's more gory than that. I mean, you don't watch The Boys. I watch The Boys and people blow up and things like happen.
Yes, you've got gore and everything like that, but this gore was so different because you know it's real. You know our God went through it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's another level of gore and violence because it's actually accurate.
Yeah.
Well, not necessarily accurate, but it's
true. As close a portrayal as you could possibly make it. Yeah, I think I think it just shows the brutality of what the cross is. It shows you the brutality of what crucifixions were, just as a form of punishment and torture and death sentence. so yeah, now Bailey's joined us. Hello, Bailey. Oh, Bailey. Yeah, so it's a movie that captures just the brutality of that time. And I mean, people have always been brutal, but to see it depicted that way, and the way that Mel Gibson took the creative direction on it. I mean, even I don't know who plays, it's not Monica Bellucci, she plays Mary Magdalene, I think. She's quite famous. She was in, yeah, she was in slow-mo dude, Neo, oh my gosh, The Matrix. Yeah, she was in there. Yeah, wow, that took me right on my way to get there. But yeah, she was in The Matrix and things, but even who played Satan, like the way that they did it, and like that juxtaposition of like what it was, and you know, there you see that Jesus getting tortured. I think it was it Mel Gibson or somebody reporting on Mel Gibson said like it was meant to be like a twisted take on the mother and her child. Remember the devil like
yes,
looks
walking
and
with the baby.
Yeah. And like it's almost like the devil was taunting Mary there, not so much Jesus.
Because didn't Mary actually look at the devil in that scene?
In the scene, yeah. And like,
you know,
they made it appear that way, and then she's like, the baby kind of like looks. I mean, just the way that he ties in these references, also like standing on the snake's head from scripture. It was just fascinating to see this portrayal. I don't know, what are your thoughts on
but also
the
like,
way that he did it?
I think it was also the behind the scenes of how God touched those actors' lives behind the scenes. Like the scene in Barabbas, the scene with Barabbas, where Pilate was asking if they wanted to save Barabbas or save Jesus. And the crowd are now like, no, we don't. We brought Jesus here for a reason. We want him crucified. So save Barabbas. He is a murderer. And so they choose to save a murderer. And in that scene, he's meant to jeer as he's like running away down the stairs. And then he's meant to turn towards Jesus and jeer in his face. And in that scene, like, you watch him, he looks at Jesus, and then he's about to step forward, and he looks back at Jesus, and then starts running down the stairs. That was not meant to happen. Like you said, he was meant to go in his face and laugh in his face and everything. And like actually hearing that before I watched that scene was quite profound. Like then I actually saw just how intense it was seeing this man dressed up as Jesus after having all the makeup on him, looking like he'd just been beaten to a pulp, and he just couldn't bring himself to do that. And then that night goes and gives his life to the Lord. Like it's just, amazing the way that things on set happened as well. Yeah.
I mean, Jim Caviezel is quite well known for just speaking about his experience. He had to have heart surgery because he had stress on his heart because of like hanging on the cross the way that he was hanging. And yes, they supported him, but it still had like a physiological toll. He got struck by lightning. I think one of the crew members got struck by lightning because as they were doing the cross scene, there was a storm that was actually taking place. And I think some of the footage that they used in the movie is from the real storm. Which in some ways, like we were talking about, we're like, oh, they could have made it more ominous and more like dark. But now learning that storm was actually part of a real storm, it's really just interesting, just the things that was taking place there and people's encounters, and it had a real toll. And I mean, Mel Gibson, he plays it off a little bit, but he also does speak about the things that happened and then moving on from this movie and the effects of it. But again, I think it's just a heavy portrayal of the crucifixion. And then you see a little bit of the resurrection, obviously, at the end.
Which is I think like, that was awesome.
So needed, though. Because there was a point like especially because of my belief, I feel the victory in him standing up there. Imagine if you just stopped the movie and he's in the tomb.
But the resurrection is a big part of that. So like he had to kind of add it in.
Yeah, he had to. And then like looking through his hands and like it's just...
Oh, that was hectic. Looking through the holes.
Yeah, and the way that it ended.
I think for me, like after watching that movie. Yes, I've been a Christian all my life, but actually watching that now was the right time in my life. I think I was mature enough, because you can't just have any child. It's not for a child to watch, even though it's a story for our children to listen to and understand. The movie itself, I would highly recommend everyone to watch it, just because of the power it holds. But also, like afterwards, I've become so much more grateful. Like I've always been grateful for what Jesus did, dying on the cross, but actually seeing it depicted in a film has brought so much more gratitude in my life since that. Like knowing that that is what he went through. Like he was beaten to the point of not being recognized. He did that so we could be free. And I think that's the most incredible thing of watching this. And I fully believe Mel Gibson did a phenomenal job with this movie. I don't think anyone else could have actually done what he's done, because he made it so real. He didn't like use excessive CGI or anything. And I was like,
it's because he budgeted.
Yeah, but I think that natural element made it better.
Yeah, it did. And now he's making a sequel,
which I'm excited for.
Yeah, The Resurrection of the Christ, apparently coming out next year. And from my understanding, that's going to be kind of the story of Acts and looking at the kind of the sacrificial lives of the apostles afterwards, and just the follow-on from that. So that's going to be very interesting. Like he's going to look at the growth of the early church and the suffering that the apostles went through for Jesus. So yeah, it's going to be quite exciting. But if I were to ask you to put a critic hat on, how would you be a critic to this movie? Because I was just thinking of it for myself. It's like, what could I actually be a movie critic for?
But, well, like I said, I like the natural element of the filming. The shots that he took throughout the film were quite descriptive, I found. The way he made you feel like you were there. Like he had you in the crowd. He had you following him down the path while he's carrying his cross, and Simon helped him. He really, really took you into the movie. Yeah. Especially like with the fact that he made them speak Aramaic the whole way through as well. I still think, even though it was a real storm, I still think they should have made it darker, like filming at night or something, just because in the Bible it says it was dark as night. For me, that would have been quite an interesting aspect to see Jesus breathing his last breath while it's dark as night, but it's middle of the day though.
Yeah, I think there is like creative things that they could have done, right? So in watching the movie, and now I've watched it 3 times, right? Okay, the first time I was like a teenager, my dad took me. Then I watched it while working in a church camp, and then now. So it's been periods, like long periods in between. I think like how else do you tell the story between those hours, right? Like it's at Gethsemane, you see what he goes through, the torment that he goes through, even the fact that they, like, it's the first time now, the third time that I watched it, that I did actually notice, because I always used to criticize, be like, I don't think he sweated blood, because they like left that out. But actually, when you look at it, because it was dark, you don't see it. Yeah. But you can see that it was there. So I was like, oh, there's those elements, right? But there was a point when he was carrying his cross, and I was like, well, that scene felt a bit like long-winded. He's falling over and then getting back up, and falling over and getting back up, and I'm like, but how do you really criticize that? Because he could be driving the point just on how hard it was, because it was hard. The cross was exceptionally heavy, over like 120 kgs or so. I need to check that fact, but whatever. It was a really heavy cross. It just emphasizes the effect that it had on that. So there are like little things, and I agree with you, that like the darkness, but I think with the budget that he had,
he did a very good job.
Yeah, and that he self-funded it. I think everything is just, it's good. Like, how do you criticize the Passion of the Christ? I don't feel like it's something that you put like a critic hat on. Thank you, Bailey. But yeah, overall, I would recommend it. Would non-believers understand it? Maybe they'll understand it for what it is, but I don't think that was its intended audience. No. But as a believer, I think it's something that a believer should watch at least once.
There's our take on the Passion of the Christ. Thank you for joining us and bearing with us as we chatted and had Bailey join in that too. with her 2 cents. But so we're going to see you guys next time.
Yeah, like, follow, share, subscribe, all those lovely things.